No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 234. Hope you're having a wonderful day, especially if you were celebrating Memorial Day in the US. I was there last year, actually, in Florida. Had the best time. But of course, it is also spring bank holiday here in the UK. Not quite so hot, but I couldn't think of any way I would rather spend this day than with you here on Outspoken. And thank you, by the way, to all of those patriots at the first ever New Culture Forum Literary Festival in London at the weekend. It was an honour to be there. I was interviewed on stage by the great Philip Kinsella, and I cannot wait to share our conversation with you very soon. Now, on with the news, and breaking today, our Outspoken campaign to free Lucy Connolly finally reaches the White House, with the US State Department confirming on the record their concern about the jailing of the political prisoner mum for sending one tweet. And that free speech clampdown comes as Charlie Kirk offers a brutal assessment of our deteriorating United Kingdom after his visit here.
That unfortunately the UK has become. And it's tragic. I don't say that with glib. I don't say that with delight. It is sad. Britain is why we exist. It's like going back to the life force, and it's chilling and it's depressing.
So I'm going to cover this growing scandal that the mainstream media, surprise, surprise, is ignoring. Then they're back. Today's superstar panel, conservative commentator Sophie Corcoran and YouTuber Syntyche Djunga, who we know as Based and Bougie. Also coming up on the show today, an explosive on-air row between Kevin O'Sullivan and a Tory shadow minister over the Lucy Connolly case. I'm going to show you this extraordinary moment very soon. Emanuel Macron attacked by his wife, Brigitte Macron, during an astonishing plane confrontation, unexpectedly caught on camera. Candace Owens has weighed in. I'm going to show you what she has to say. And a new civil war at GB News over the shock cancelling of headliners. I'll tell you what's happening behind the scenes. Then, in the Uncancelled After Show on Substack, Meghan Markle's American Airlines air hostess message is exposed as a stunt. I'll reveal the truth about how she treats staff on board as we team up with the Royal News Network. You can sign up to watch on Substack, www.outspoken.live. We're also going to reveal our first Greatest Britain and Union Jackass of the week. You can vote right now, by the way, for your Union Jackass using the live chat on YouTube. Here are the nominees as chosen by you. Well, Emanuel Macron, as nominated by Big Mama Booth, caught by the Associated Press getting a shove in the face from Brigitte as they landed in Air France in Hanoi. Michael Gove, nominated by The Grift Report for asking his son if his celebrity has helped or hindered him in life. And Gary Lineker, nominated by Touring with Nick C because of his tear-filled departure from Match of the Day. Get voting. The winner and your best comments revealed at the end of the show. So lots of reason to stick with us this Bank Holiday Monday. But now, let's go. Dear Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump, and all of our patriotic friends in the United States of America, we know the UK is in trouble. We know Starmer is stripping away the right to free speech that we granted the world. We know our government is totalitarian. We know we have political prisoners. We're trying to fight. It's hard, but this week there were some positive signs. As Nick Buckley posted on X, Manchester, the ripples of Southport will change this country forever. 22 dead in my city changed nothing, but the slaughter of 3 girls in Southport awoke the nation. It's time for a massive change. I smell it in the air. Now, he was referring to this scene. But of course, with grieving mother Lucy Connolly and the activist and citizen journalist Tommy Robinson, two high-profile examples of slippery Starmer's political prisoners, it is shocking for Americans to try and comprehend how the United Kingdom has allowed this to happen, and how even our so-called right-wing stations like GB News have become so cucked and captured by the state narrative, as Charlie Kirk pointed out after his visit last week.
Yeah, right, GB News. And I said that it's not compatible with Western values. And it went very viral, and it was so funny. The production team afterwards at GB News was like, wow, you said that. I'm like, wow, you guys are so British. You should spend some time in America. Our Overton window has moved a lot.
Now, there should be nothing shocking about pointing out Islam is not compatible with our way of life, and the fact GB News is so shocked about someone saying something like that says a lot about their role as controlled opposition. But I should point out Charlie was not celebrating the demise of Great Britain, instead using us as a case study of why Trump has been so important in terms of saving the US from the same sort of tyranny.
For 10 years, we have had more robust discussions about the downfall of America and its core reasons and its causes, and we take it for granted. I'm telling you, visiting that totalitarian that unfortunately the UK has become. And it's tragic. I don't say that with glib. I don't say that with delight. It is sad. Britain is why we exist. It's like going back to the life force, and it's chilling and it's depressing.
Now, what's also sad and depressing is that after just a few days in Britain, Charlie was actually relieved to return to the US. That should worry us all.
They invented free speech, sent it back to our country. There's so much wrong with that country, and it is not worthy of making fun of. I mean, you can have some laughs and some comedy, but it is depressing. It is dark. And I came back literally kissing the ground when I came back from London yesterday.
But of course, our elite class and our corrupt mainstream media will ignore Charlie Kirk's chilling message, just like they will ignore the indignity of the fact Donald Trump and the White House are not only sending teams to the UK to look into our shocking retraction of free speech, but are now directly and on the record putting pressure on slippery Starmer over the shocking imprisonment of Lucy Connolly. So look at this, front page from the Daily Telegraph. And before I go into it, I just want to remind you all of the lie our revolting Prime Minister told J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, in the Oval Office.
There have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our
Well, you're a liar, Starmer. You're a despicable liar. We know it. We've known it for years, but the world is waking up, in part thanks to Charlie Kirk. Because listen to this from the Daily Telegraph's front page story today. The White House has said it is monitoring the case of Lucy Connolly in an escalation of free speech tensions with Sir Keir Starmer. State Department officials are examining the treatment of Connolly, the wife of a Conservative councillor who was jailed for 31 months over a social media post about the Southport attacks. Judges threw out an appeal brought by the 42-year-old last week, meaning she will not be released before August. Campaigners raised her case with Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, as part of a wider effort to challenge what they regard as draconian hate speech laws across Europe. A spokesman for the US State Department said, "We can confirm that we are monitoring this matter. The United States supports freedom of expression at home and abroad and remains concerned about infringements on freedom of expression. Appalling, but true. And thank God they care enough to send this message. Close advisor to Trump, Jason Miller, for many years reviled why these cases are so important to the president.
In the case of, say, Lucy Connolly, for example,
yes.
that clearly what she said was completely stupid. There's no defense for it. However, 31 months in prison when you have violent people who've done just horrific acts
yes.
that get out far less time, 31 months. You see some of these restrictions. And also keep in mind with President Trump, this is personal on free speech. You think about how he was deplatformed by the major social media platforms in his own political campaigns. You also look at the way they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story. Because
we've also heard about the suppression of Biden's bad health.
Correct. Well, that one is a little bit more complicit from both his own staff and the media. But there should be free speech. There should be a fight for free speech. And I'm glad that the State Department, at President Trump's direction, is using the bully pulpit to advocate for that.
We should be ashamed. This story, if we had an honest media, would be leading the British bashing corporation, woke ITV, and Sly News. But of course, it doesn't fit the establishment narrative, so it's ignored. Yet another reason why the MSM deserves to die this slow and painful death. Now, today's superstar panel. Sophie, Corcoran and Based and Bougie back with me. Based and Bougie, when you listen to the words of Charlie Kirk, as a young British woman facing potentially decades trying to save this country, how does it make you feel?
No, my heart actually broke a little bit. My heart actually broke because everything Charlie Kirk has said is everything I've been feeling for the last 2 years, ever since I've started my journey in journalism. I don't think people understand that something very dark is coming into the UK. I mean, it's already started, and we are living in very, very dark times. We're living in a time where a woman is she's been in prison now for over 200 days for a silly tweet. It was a very, very silly tweet. And to be honest, she had every right to be angry because when 3 babies are slaughtered, all bats are off. But yet you had, what was that Labour councillor's name? His name was Ricky Jones.
Yes.
He was pulled out of jail. And what he said is that we need to slit the throats of the people who are upset about the fact that children were murdered. We're living in very, very dark times. And it's like every single time people like myself try to scream at the top of our lungs and try to make people aware of the fact that this country is turning into a communist state, we're almost made to look like we're a joke. And not only that, especially as an immigrant's child, my parents came here as immigrants. This country is literally turning into the country they escaped from. A lot of immigrant parents, especially African immigrants, they came here for that freedom of speech. Like everything we are seeing here, people being jailed for simply having an opinion or for tweeting, these were things that used to happen during socialist Marxist Africa during the 60s. And yet it's happening here in the UK, and everyone seems to be taking it as a joke. People want to label us, they want to call us far right, they want to call us coon, they want to call us everything under the name. But one thing my parents would always tell me is if you don't listen, you will learn. So it's dark times that we're living in. I don't think people understand what is coming.
I completely agree. Sophie Corcoran, what was your reaction to Charlie Kirk?
I mean, it's just sad, isn't it, that for the British people, we're now relying on a foreign state to essentially protect some of our most basic rights. And I think when you sort of frame it in that way and the way that it's true, I mean, it's deeply worrying. I mean, if you're reliant on a foreign state to protect your rights, you don't live in a free country, which is pretty sad because, at one point Britain was the envy of the world and now we're the world's joke.
It's incredibly sad. At the same time, is there the possibility that this, how do we put it, intervention from the US State Department into the case of Lucy Connolly might shame Slippery Starmer and his communist comrades into taking some sort of different approach, or are they just so locked in?
Well, hopefully it will do, because obviously he claimed the other day in an interview that he didn't know anything about the case, and I was like, well, I'm sorry, but if like Marco Rubio knows about the case in the US, there is no way on God's green earth that our Prime Minister does not know what's going on. And I really hope so. And Dad, I just want to add something, because it's been winding me up all week actually, is how many of these commentators are now sort of jumping on the, free Lucy Connolly bandwagon. I mean, I've been calling for this since literally the day that she was arrested, and as have you, and as have many other people. But there are always these sort of right-wing commentators that shut their mouth until they think it's popular to kind of join on a bandwagon, and they think it's the safe thing to do. And it's just really annoying me this week, because like, you should have been fighting for her from the beginning, because this is a matter of principle. And principles aren't just there to be fought for when it's popular and easy to do so.
Oh, trust me, Sophie. Trust me. I've thought a lot about this. Because, look, I see it in two ways. There's one side of me that thinks, look, the most important thing in this case is that Lucy Connolly is freed and that the attention is brought to this case. And in some ways, I'm so proud of the campaign that Outspoken has started. I specifically got Alison Pearson involved. She's taken this to such a wide mainstream media audience, bravely, by the way. Then the Free Speech Union got on board. But at the same time, there is that part of me, and I'll let Based and Bougie come in on this, but there's this part of me that's like, oh my God, you didn't say a thing, Piers Morgan, when this was all going on. And you haven't said a thing about Julie Sweeney, who is the grandmother in jail for a Facebook group message. You haven't said a thing about Peter Lynch, the protester who died behind bars. So look, there are a lot of Johnny-come-latelys to this. At the same time, part of me thinks, Based and Bougie, maybe we just need to shift the Overton window. That's our job in this independent media space, to wake people up. And if they do wake up late, maybe it's better they've woken up late than not woken up at all.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with the opinion that it's better that they'd waken up than to not wake up at all. But for someone like the likes of Piers Morgan, I'm finding it difficult to understand that he didn't know that this ever happened in the UK. He's not aware of Lucy Connolly's case. And it's the same thing that's happened with the grooming gangs. This had been going on for the last 2 decades. Not only that, Tommy Robinson, he had been talking about it for the last 2 decades, and they only started to discuss it as soon as it became popular. So I just think people are just addicted to attention, and they're just addicted to media fame, and they're just addicted to acceptance, because we all know when America sneezes, the whole world catches the flu. So what you see a lot of these journalists doing is trying to jump on the bandwagon and jump on what's popular to try to make themselves seem as though they're on the right side of history, when really and truly you knew what was happening. You decided not to speak about it because it wasn't popular. And I personally feel like that's just disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, I saw what was happening and I couldn't cope with what was happening. And I guess, Sophie, sometimes people are scared, but you've got to stop being scared, right? You've got to stop being scared. Like if you were in a position of power and you see a mother or a grandmother sent to jail for a tweet, speak up. If you're in a position of power, speak up. You've got to do it at the time.
Agree. And I think personally, I've been fighting for this for a really long time, because the fact that she was going to prison at all was absurd, let alone for how long she's gone on. And I've gone on LBC and the BBC and sort of, the more woke mainstream media platforms to really fight this case. And, I'm sure you have as well. We've dealt with a lot of people, a lot of backlash saying that, that we're supporting a criminal and all this. So it just bugs me that there's certain mainstream media commentators, not even Piers Morgan, but other sort of conservative commentators on the right, those made frequent GB news, shall we say, that are doing it just to get clicks, when for a lot of us, we did it for the right reasons. And, we took a risk because we believed that this woman was treated badly. And look, another thing I want to bring up is with this is that, like I said, we're very focused on Lucy Connolly, but there are 1,000 people per month in this country that are arrested for social media posts. We've got, for example, Wayne O'Rourke, who's still in jail. And I think it's really, because Lucy Connolly has become so popular, because, she's a mum, and the fact that her husband was ill, and the fact that, 31 months is absolutely ridiculous. And, it helps that, of course, she's a woman. So for us, it seems, it's particularly more absurd to put a mother in jail for this long when she isn't violent or anything. there are other people, and I think that perhaps, you know, over the coming weeks, Dan, hopefully, if, you know, Lucy ever gets justice, that we can shine the light on the other people.
No. It's a great point, Sophie. It's a great point. And actually, I'm so glad that you've raised Wayne, because his is a case that I've also closely followed. We have spoken about on the show, but you're absolutely right. We need to return to this. He was a follower of Outspoken, a supporter of Outspoken, and he is another political prisoner. So I absolutely will come back to that case. Also, by the way, I just want to show you what another regular Outspoken guest, Bernie Spofford, had said. Remember, she was the businesswoman who was arrested for a post on X after the Southport massacre, and she has just revealed some big news on X. I was invited to a meeting last year with a visiting delegation from the US House Judiciary Committee and their counterparts from the Senate to share what had happened to me. So I did. They were horrified by my case and by others, both here and in the EU. They've been paying attention and they are deeply disturbed. Don't let the authorities gaslight you into thinking everything here is fine. It's not. So it is interesting to see that the US government are very, very much on this one. But of course, we are going to keep on these political prisoners. And here on Outspoken, that is such a priority for me. What is a concern, however, is the fact that the Conservatives are not getting on this bandwagon at all. Developing right now a major on-air clash on Talk TV between Kieran Mullen, the Shadow Justice Minister. He calls himself a Conservative, and an absolutely riled up, infuriated Kevin O'Sullivan because this Tory refused to say that Lucy Connolly should be released from prison. Now, not only does this go against the view of Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, not only does it go against the view of Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative Party leader, but even the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. Now, I know lots of you will say, well, it was under his rule that these sorts of laws were able to come in, but he has gone public, echoing this call to free Lucy Connolly.
In the very week when it has been decided that Lucy Connolly must serve her full 31 months in jail, even though she's a young mother with no previous criminal record, the Labour government has announced that it's going to release literally thousands of serious sexual and violent offenders because they say there's no room in our jails. Well, Shabana Mahmood, Justice Secretary, if you want to empty one jail cell and release one person who presents absolutely no threat to the British public, then free Lucy Connolly now.
A major intervention there from Boris Johnson. I, of course, completely agree with him. So what on earth is this little drip Kieran Mullen, this absolute idiot, wet, woke Kieran Mullen, the Shadow Justice Minister, doing? We're going to get reaction from Based and Bougie and Sophie Corcoran, the superstar panelists, in just one moment. But first, check out the start of this shocking confrontation this morning on Talk.
Thank you for joining us. You've just heard that rather spirited discussion that I've been having. The American government, White House, is now monitoring us, particularly about the Lucy Connolly case. They believe that Lucy Connolly doing 31 months for a tweet is an assault on freedom of speech, an assault on freedom of expression. They're also very worried about the way we're treating anti-abortion demonstrators. America is now monitoring Britain because of our approach to freedom of speech. They're worried about our Prime Minister and his suppression of freedom of expression, and that's worrying because that's the sort of monitoring they do of North Korea, of Myanmar, of Russia, of China, and now we're in that bracket. Kind of worrying.
I think Lord Harold set out the position quite effectively there. The Prime
You're not going to buy into that rubbish as well, are you?
Well, I think it's clear that the Prime Minister has not had a personal involvement in any.
Oh, come on! You're the opposition. Give it a go. Be the opposition.
Being an opposition is also about being credible and making sure that you're.
Yeah, well, I'm being credible. You're being incredible.
I don't think comparing.
You don't think there's anything unusual about what happened to all those suspects after the summer riots, amid the summer riots. You don't think there's anything unusual that while most suspects wait 2 years before they come to court, those guys and those women were all in court within about 2 days, sentenced in jail, but within 5 days. You don't think there's anything unusual about that? You don't think the Prime Minister's got anything to do with that? You're supposed to be the opposition. Oppose!
Yes, indeed. I'm clapping along too. And it just gets better, actually. It just gets better. A reminder, this is a Conservative Kevin O'Sullivan is roasting.
We
Well,
understand.
tell me what is your stance on Lucy Connolly, please?
Kevin, as much as you might want me to boil down complex issues into yes or no answers, I'm not going to do that. I've set out the clear understanding we have of why people feel there hasn't been proportionality when it comes to some of these cases. In Lucy's case,
Connolly, what is the Tory? Your leader, Kemi Badenoch, says that her sentence is grotesque and she should be released. What about you?
What Kemi said?
Badenoch said that. Are you contradicting your leader?
No, what Kemi said was, we understand why people are concerned about that case, and that particularly the decision not to allow her to have overnight visitation was particularly concerning, and that actually we pointed out that Lucy does have routes to appeal that to the prison governor, and actually what Kemi said is it is all about proportionality.
So you're all in favour of the sentence. The Tories support the 31 months for Lucy Connolly. Yep.
Well, as I said,
yes.
it's about
It's
proportionality.
a yes or no.
It's not, I'm afraid. It's about proportionality. I understand why people are concerned.
How do you think this appearance is going for you, Kieran?
I think it's not
going very well.
Badly.
It's not going very well, is it?
I'm not sure.
Honestly,
I'm not
you're
sure
so out of step with what the people of this country are thinking.
I'm not sure.
Look, I'm just saying, mate. I'm just saying, Kieran.
You seem not let them say very much.
You seem like a nice guy, but let me tell you, you don't really understand. You don't seem to understand the principles of opposition. Stop supporting Keir Starmer and start opposing him. It would really help.
You're just going to rant the whole way through. I think the benefit of an interview that listeners want to hear what other people have to say. If you want to stick to a monologue, please feel free to do that. But I think actually listeners want to hear different perspectives. I've been very clear.
Yeah, well, I would just stick to a monologue because let me tell you, if that is the offering from the Conservative Party, then you are finished. Kevin O'Sullivan, though, hadn't finished.
You're fully in favour of what's happened to Lucy Connolly, are you? Are you in favour of what Lucy...
If you let me get a word in, you let me actually finish a sentence, I'll talk to you about the areas in which I understand why the public are concerned. Because I think what the public do rightly raise is the contrast. Because actually what we saw last week was the Labour Party, and this is Labour policy, and this is the Prime Minister, saying that at the same time, they want to make it so that rapists, child abusers, killers, get out of jail even earlier than they already do. And so I think that's when people then have a question about, well, where's the proportionality, where's the balance? I do understand why the judiciary, and I think this is the judiciary, not the government, why the judiciary, when there's a public order issue, when there's a risk of widespread disorder, when we're seeing hotels being attacked and other things like that, that they want to send a very clear message to the public in the short term that this has to stop. And that's a reasonable approach to take in the round. That doesn't mean that each and every case is going to be one that the public think, well, that's
let me get this straight, though, if I may, Kieran. The Tory party the Tory opposition party is right behind the 31-month sentence for Lucy Connolly and the fact that her appeal against the grotesque severity of that sentence failed. The Tory party is fully in favour of that, are they? Yes or no? Are you in favour of it?
I don't think anybody listening to what I've just said would have interpreted it as...
What is your position?
Yes, we would.
Are you in favour of Lucy Connolly's condition, her situation? Are you in favour of the 31-month sentence and the failure of her appeal? Where do the stories stand? Because if you are supporting that, I think our listeners will be very interested.
Oh, I despair. I absolutely despair. I mean, Sophie Corcoran, former Conservative Party member, isn't it the likes of Karen Mullen, that woke, wet wuss, which is why your former party are finished?
I mean, that was just so painful, wasn't it? I mean, I've been a Conservative staffer, and I think I would have my head in my absolute hand, banging my head against the wall if my boss had just pulled out a performance like that on the media. I mean, who would have signed him up for the media rounds? He just strikes me as someone who was picked last in PE. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't explain it to you, but he was definitely picked last in PE because he just has no charisma. Every time he opened his mouth, it was extremely boring. He wouldn't give us an answer. I mean, who put him up for the media rounds? Really? I mean, look, he could be a fantastic MP. I'm sure he is a great MP. And I don't want this to sort of colour what the Conservatives are doing because, like we said, this is one MP who is particularly bad and who probably shouldn't be doing the media. Whereas,
but he's the shadow justice minister.
I know, it's embarrassing. I'm not sure who put him up for the cabinet, but we've got, Katie Lamb. Maybe we need to put her in because she's doing a pretty good showing at the minute. I mean, Rob Jenrick's been doing all right. I mean, Kemi has been sort of coming out the woodwork lately, especially with,
No, totally. But this is the fundamental problem, though. We have all of these woke-topians that have infiltrated that party. I mean, Based and Bougie, could you believe that he wasn't just prepared to say, yep, I agree with my leader, I agree with the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, I agree with my boss, the Shadow Justice Secretary, that of course this mother, this grieving mother, should not be in jail in a civilised society for 31 months for a tweet. I mean, it seems like the most obvious thing to say, and he just could not bring himself to do it.
He said so much, but said nothing at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with our establishment, our government, our councillors, is that they're very good at just using these big words and these big jargons, but really and truly, they are saying nothing. It's just a simple yes and no answer. Do you think that her imprisonment is just? Do you think that a woman tweeting something, and he already knows the answer, so why he's refusing to say it, from my perspective and the audience perspective, it gives me the idea that somebody is paying him. Somebody is paying him, and this is the problem with our establishment, our government, our councillors. They are just addicted to just being paid. They just care about their next paycheck and not standing for truth, and that is what's holding back.
Totally, and it's why we need a revolution. I mean, but look, what is happening with the Conservative Party though is quite interesting though, because Sophie, according to the Sunday Times, this weekend, 3 serving MPs, 2 former cabinet ministers have said that Kemi Badenoch is finished as leader. It would be better for the party if she stood down. But now the push is on to bring back Boris, who became a father again over the weekend. Before I get you away, and Sophie, I just want to show you this quite interesting piece of TV at the top of the BBC Laura Kuenssberg show yesterday, when she managed to get Angela Rayner and Kemi Badenoch in the same shot, effectively both to lie to us about their chances of becoming Prime Minister. Watch.
The biggest players these days are here with us this morning, the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, and the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, and the party slipped behind the Lib Dems in one poll this week. Great to have you here on a busy day in the studio. There's always chatter about these things. I just wonder, who do you both think is more likely to be Prime Minister? Angela, you, or Kemi one day?
Keir staying Prime Minister.
But in the future?
In the future, Keir.
In the future, Keir forever and ever and ever?
Well, I don't think he'll be there forever. I don't think Keir will want to do it forever, but for the time being, Keir's there.
OK. Kemi, who do you think will be more likely to be Prime Minister, you or Angela?
I'm working to get Keir out as quickly as possible. Okay. So it's got to be a Conservative Prime Minister, and that's me.
I mean, Sophie Corcoran, have you ever seen 2 politicians who literally do not believe what they're saying? Of course, Angela Rayner is going to be the next Prime Minister. And of course, Kemi Badenoch knows she's not going to be Prime Minister. At the same time, is bringing back Boris Johnson really the solution? As Aaron Banks posted on X, what? So they can let another 3 million migrants in?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a point, but I still think that Boris would probably be better than the other lot. I mean, if you've ever been sort of campaigning while Boris is on the campaign trail, I think someone said it actually on a Talk TV interview the other day, it is quite literally like campaigning with someone like Mick Jagger, was their words from the Talk TV interview. He is so unbelievably captivating. And at the moment, if you're going to deal with Farage, you're going to have someone that's got the personality to do it.
Well, he's a superstar, isn't he?
The Conservatives is to do that. He is an absolute star, and there's nobody that matches him within the Conservative Party at the moment. I think Jenrick says the right things, but again, no one knows who Rob Jenrick is. I'm sorry, but the 90% of the public do not know who Robert Jenrick is. A lot of people don't know who Kemi Badenoch is. Everybody knows who Boris Johnson is. He is an absolute star. And that's why Reform get along so well. I mean, they haven't got, formulated policy. Reform is Nigel Farage's band. And the reason why he leads it so well, and the reason why someone else probably can't lead it as well as he does, is because it's all about personality. Look at Donald Trump, it's all about personality. And I think that's the same with Boris Johnson. So yeah, I'm not quite sure if he would match up to Farage in the way things are going, but he'd certainly do a pretty good job. And even if he doesn't come in to take over the party, I think he really needs to start playing a role in how the Conservative Party can become a popular party again, something that people can deal with. Because otherwise, look, we can either have Boris Johnson, who's great, charismatic, brilliant, or we can have that geezer that just went on Talk TV, Kieran Mullen or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I mean,
the worst thing ever on media. I mean, come off it. I could do better when I was like 4.
The problem we've got, though, Based and Bougie, is that Boris Johnson, and remember, I supported Boris Johnson for a load of reasons, especially Brexit, right? We needed to get Brexit done. But where he completely failed the country was on Nut Zero and this mad push for Nut Zero, which is going to end up bankrupting us. And yes, it was Theresa May who introduced it, but he went full-fledged behind it. And the Boris wave, the millions of immigrants let into our country during his premiership. Can he ever get over that?
I mean, with Boris Johnson, I have like a love-hate relationship with him.
Don't we all?
We all have a love-hate relationship with him. I just feel like, obviously, with what he's done with allowing the millions of immigrants to come into this country unvetted, unchecked, we don't even check their criminal records, we don't even check their CVs, has affected my and many people from my generation's future to even buy a home, to even afford a car. They've made it very difficult for us. However, if I would vote for Boris Johnson just to see him ziplining with the Union Jacks, that's the one thing I would love to see again.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, actually. Sophie, quick word on your fellow ginger-headed political maestro, Angela Rayner. Were you buying her "I'm never going to run, even though I'm leaking against Keir Starmer"? Because let me tell you, I did not believe a single word of what she said. That woman is on manoeuvres. And I know a lot of people are going to be terrified by this, Sophie, but I believe she's going to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. She's not going to be elected. She will never be elected, but I believe she will replace Keir Starmer in a Labour Party coup.
You know what, Dan, I'm certainly not afraid of a bit of controversy. So I will happily come on Outspoken and actually say that Angela Rayner is probably my favourite current politician. I think she's an awful politician. Let me put that aside. But like, again, you know, she's got something about her. She's not boring. There's too many politicians in this country that are boring. They're too scared to do anything. I mean, she's just carnage, this woman. And I think, first of all, she's really funny. Secondly, she's just, you know, a proper working class house. She's got one of the most inspiring stories in politics. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would never vote for her politics. I think her politics are awful. But I just really like her as an MP. And she's much better than Keir Starmer in pretty much every single metric. All right, she's not perfect, but she's like Boris. She's got a personality. She actually wants the job. She's someone who's going to take risks, and they'll probably go really wrong, but at least she's going to take them and not subscribe to this risk of sort of managed decline. And yeah, I think she's much better, to be honest, than Keir Starmer. I do not believe for a second that she does not think she's going to be Prime Minister. I don't think the Labour Party would choose her, unfortunately, in a leadership contest. And I definitely don't think the public would vote for her either. So I don't think she's going to be Prime Minister, because there's no way anyone in their sane right mind is going to vote for Angela Rayner to be Prime Minister. But I do actually really like her for some reason. I'm not sure why. She's one of my favourite politicians, and I've always said it. Just because she's got a really inspiring story. In actual fact, you know, you can leave school with virtually nothing and become Deputy Prime Minister. And I know there's a lot of people that sneer at that and say that we should have, you know, these extremely Kieran Mullen-esque politicians who are extremely rehearsed and won't say anything. I'd much rather a woman from a Manchester council estate who's had to grit her way through politics than someone like him, personally. But that's just because I'm from, you know, a working class place like Thurrock, and I'm tired of being in a Tory party full of posh people that don't believe in anything. So I quite like a bit of Angela Rayner, to be honest with you. So that's the most controversial thing I think I've ever said on the show. But at least I'm not afraid to say it.
What I respect Angela Rayner for, where I will agree with you, is that at least she doesn't lie about who she is. Keir Starmer is a shape-shifting chameleon. I believe he's on the hard left, but he's never prepared to say it. Angela Rayner will say it. She'll do it. The big problem is she'll also bankrupt the country at the same time. Breaking right now, Candace Owens has responded to the incredible, extraordinary slap which has shocked the world today. Brigitte Macron attacking the French president, her husband Emanuel Macron, when she didn't think the world was watching. Slight problem, the plane door had opened. This from Candace, who believes Brigitte Macron to be a man. Well, trending in France right now, Brigitte Macron has been caught on camera smacking Emanuel Macron. They did not realise the news cameras were in view. Emanuel Macron has been abused by this dude since he was in grade school. If you haven't seen it, take a close look at this absolutely shocking moment. I mean, absolutely no doubt that Brigitte was going in to attack Macron, had no idea that the staff had opened the plane doors. And of course, this gives a very clear indication that their relationship has been abusive for some time. So we've got to really get into this now with my superstar panel, the conservative commentator Sophie Corcoran and the YouTube sensation Based and Bougie. So, Based and Bougie, what do you make of this? If this were a man, and I know a lot of people do think Brigitte Macron is a man, but if this were a man attacking his wife in this way, I don't think anyone would be laughing about it. What was going on here? Is this domestic abuse?
I just think Brigitte and Macron, they are just not beating the allegations. They are not beating the allegations against them because first and foremost, she has some, for a female, she has some very strong hands. Like she nearly knocked his head out of his neck for a female. Not only that, but she slapped him as if he was his son, which again is not beating the allegations. Another thing is that if she's such a female, why aren't all these feminists coming out and discussing, domestic abuse between relationships? Why isn't no one discussing that if this is a female and this is a male and female relationships? So I just feel like they are not beating the allegations at all.
No, I mean, Candace has also now posted, after first calling it Russian disinformation, Emanuel Macron has now pivoted and is telling the press that he and his 80-year-old husband were play fighting. Ever play fight with a senior citizen? Also, Brigitte refused his hand coming down the stairs. I mean, Sophie Corcoran, I call bullshit on that. There was no play fighting going on. It was absolutely clear that Emanuel was fuming, absolutely furious. As you could see in my pictures, he was gripping his fist and he was mortified that she had done that in front of the world. So the idea that this is play fighting, I think we can rule that out as nonsense, surely.
To be honest, I'm actually not sure because I think if I was gonna slap someone, I feel like it's one of those things that like women like push their husband's face wherever. But I think he was kind of like, this is not something that we should be doing on the world stage. I don't quite know if it's domestic abuse, to be honest. It didn't look like she was absolutely savaging him, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, when I watched this, I actually wasn't sure why people were going quite insane about it. I think it's embarrassing for Macron. I think the embarrassing part was the little emasculating wave after. I think that's probably what he was so mad about. I think he was probably a bit humiliated, to be quite honest with you. But it doesn't look like she savagely attacked him. I think people are taking this a little bit out of proportion. And I don't like Macron, but it doesn't look like...
No. I mean, I'm interested to hear both sides of this because there are two sides of it, actually, in terms of the reaction. I guess from my point of view, though, I think dismissing it as a joke is wrong because it was very obvious from his reaction that it wasn't a joke. Let me show you... Ben Leo on GB News, because he completely disagrees with your position, Sophie. He says that if his wife did that to him, he would end the marriage. Watch this.
had enough of Macron being president for so long. He's basically Francis Trudeau. I mean, this is obviously very embarrassing for the French president.
What on earth is she thinking? Actually, I'm just digesting this in real time now. This is one of the most bizarre clips I think I've ever seen.
But you know
in my life.
Have you ever been in one of them situations? Because he's walking past her, it seems, from where that hand's come from. They've been bickering. And you know when someone gives a little snide remark as they go past, and she's obviously seen red and gone, oi, who do you think you're talking to? He's obviously, well, for me, he's probably said something that's wound her up.
Well, and by the way, if my wife put a hand on my face, I wouldn't be with her. That'd be it. Well, I mean, there's no place for, I don't care if it's a woman or a man hitting me in the face. That's
yeah,
it.
I mean, joking aside, I mean, slapping your other half, be they male or female or whatever, is not a good thing to do, by the way. Just putting that out there because...
I think it's awful.
Yeah.
So, Based and Bougie, who are you with on this one? Sophie Corcoran or Ben Leo?
Definitely Ben. I won't say I agree with Sophie in the sense that it wasn't a vicious attack. It wasn't like Chris Brown and Rihanna, but it was an attack. Like, you can see that she clawed his face a little bit and then she pushed his head, and his head did fall back. So you can see, and not only that, when you read body language, the way he came out, he tried to hold her hand and she pretended she couldn't see it. And obviously, as he was walking, his fist was very tense. Not only that, but if you're just play fighting, you wouldn't feel the need to automatically look at the camera and wave and pretend everything is okay if it's just a play fight. You'll probably just continue play fighting. And the second thing I want to say, and the reason why I agree with Ben, is because when you're in a relationship with a man that you actually respect, the thought of putting hands on a man, I don't think my mum will ever put hands on my dad. I would never put hands on my partner unless I was the person actually dominating the relationship and I was the person who was more abusive in the relationship. So I won't say it was a vicious attack, but it was an attack. Like, she clawed his face and she pushed it back, and the body language said that, you know, they must have been arguing.
Sophie, how do you respond to that?
Well, I think, to me, it looks like Macron is obviously humiliated. Now, I think it was probably something unprofessional. I mean, no one really wants to open a plane door and see that. Whether they were play fighting or not, it's not an optic that you really want the public to be seeing. And he clearly wasn't anticipating the plane door being open. That's why he had to kind of embarrassingly sort of wave his hand and pretend that he was actually paying attention. Moment of sort of ill preparedness, but I don't think it's in the nature of domestic abuse as such. I think it's perhaps them behaving in a little bit of an unprofessional manner. And Macron is always a man that wants to be pitch perfect for everything. You know, he doesn't have much of a personality. He's one of those very sort of primed and proper politicians who have to be absolutely pristine and rehearsed. That's probably why he was fuming about it, because it sort of tarnished his image of him actually being an actual normal human being, which he doesn't subscribe to much. But I don't think it's necessary domestic abuse. But I think Ben is right. You know, if it was, then absolutely it's something that needs to be handled. You know, if that was a female and a man did that, and it was not play fighting, which to me it did look like it, then of course the media reaction should be equal in both senses. But I think it was definitely taking it a bit too far. And I mean, for Ben's sake, I mean, I'm not quite sure his relationship's going to be very fun if he doesn't want anyone putting his hands on him.
Well, look, I wanted to hear on this from my friend Jesus Enrique Rosas. He is the body language guy. So let me take you through his reading of this, because he usually gets it right. So he says, was it an actual aggressive gesture or was it something else? Let's find out. So looking at that picture, he says this is 1 split second before the shoving. This is how we know that Macron didn't expect the gesture, since his body was relaxed, he had a neutral expression, and his left hand wrist was relaxed as well. The 2 stages of the shoveling, I say shoveling because at first I thought it was a slap, but in fact, Brigitte used both hands to push Macron's head backwards. At the peak of the gesture, Macron realizes everyone out there just witnessed the incident. He's startled and tries to play it cool. I noticed that he made an unnecessary anchor gesture, putting his left hand on the seat to his left. This is something that we do under stress, touch the wall, a chair, something, without really leaning or using it as support. It's obvious that he was startled. They don't get out of the plane immediately. He takes a minute to compose himself. We can see a pacifying gesture of touching his nose. When they are finally going down the stairs, he offers Brigitte his arm, but Brigitte ignores him. Macron keeps his arm bent for a few more steps until finally given in. Forgot to mention that upon exiting the plane, Macron gave a handshake to the guy waiting for them and used a dominant handshake, palm down. Maybe he wanted to feel dominant in one way or another after that shove. Better than shoving Brigitte down the stairs, I guess. After all the greeting, we have this photo. Macron's left hand is in a white knuckle fist, a common sign of concealed anger. His face is also beyond serious. That downward brow area is not part of his usual body language baseline. He's got a squarish head, but the jaw looks broader than usual. With those lips pressing, my guess is that he was clenching his jaw and his jaw muscles were protruding because of the pressure. Did you spot any other signals? Well, what do you think, Based and Bougie, of that analysis, which seems to suggest, and as I say, this is from the expert, from the body language guy, who seems to suggest that Macron was taking this very seriously indeed and was caught off guard?
I mean, this is the thing. You don't even have to be a body language expert to see and understand what just happened. Like, I mean, before you read out what the body language expert said, I literally already thought everything that he wrote on Twitter in my head. She shoved him with both hands. He was embarrassed. Again, you wouldn't be embarrassed if it's just play fighting. Not only that, you could see that he was very tense after that. His face became very serious. So he went from smiling to serious within a couple of seconds. Not only that, but guys, let's be serious. Look at the age difference between them. I think they have like a 30-year age gap. Any relationship that has like a 30-plus age gap, there's just some sort of abuse involved. And they basically kind of proved it through her using both hands to shove his face. So, yeah, their age gap, their history, and obviously Candace Owens, she did an excellent job at, going through the history of these two relationships. And it's very, very dark, satanic, and God forgive me for saying this, but paedophilic. I don't put it past them.
Well, Sophie Corcoran, that is obviously something that has always been discussed about this relationship, given that she used to be his teacher.
Yeah, that's weird. I can't. I think that's weird. Look, I get age gaps, but that's really weird. And I think Candace Owens is really funny because obviously she keeps calling her a man. But I think, yeah, it is a bit of a strange relationship. Yeah, that would give me the creepy crawlies, I think.
Yeah. Of course, their relationship has, I guess, become a talking point of the world in thanks to the way that Candace Owens amplified this reporting from French journalists who have investigated sometime the life of Brigitte Macron and are convinced that she is a man. Here's Candace explaining part of the story.
Brigitte Macron. Real name, Jean-Michel Trogneux. Okay, look at this, okay? That person that you are looking at on the right is not a woman. Okay, I want you to just accept that. Take a second, take a sip of water. Oh my God, what is it saying? It could be possible that like the entire state would be involved in protecting this secret. Yes, that is what I have been telling you.
Now, of course, Based and Bougie, you get the usual, oh, you're a conspiracist, and the French government have sent Candace legal letters about her coverage of what these French journalists have discovered. But what do you make of her reporting?
Well, at first I thought Candace Owens was reaching. I literally thought, Candace Owens, now you're just doing a bit too much now. I know you left the Daily Wire, but you don't need to go this far. But until I saw that, Candace Owens actually received legal letters from the Macron family, and she returned a letter back to them saying, just answer the question, are you a man, are you a woman? And they refused to answer, is insane. Not only that, but after watching Candace Owens' breakdown, she broke it down so perfectly how there's literally zero to no footage of Brigitte in her former life. And like, as a woman, you always have pictures of you being a cheerleader, pictures of you in giving birth in the hospital, pictures of you walking down the park. There's pictures everywhere, but there's nothing. It's absolutely blank. And obviously when they sent her the legal letters telling her to stop, I mean, just for her to simply just say, yes, I am a woman, and that's it, just goes to show that, you know, she's definitely lying about her identity. And I'm confused because this is the LGBTQ generation. She should be proud about it. Like, why is she hiding it? But maybe the reason why she's hiding it is because it's not just about her being transgender. It's about the fact that there's a lot of paedophilia involved in this relationship. And Candace Owens even pointed out that Macron actually looks like Brigitte's son. So that's why when you asked me the question about the slap, I said that looked like a mother slapping her son, because that's how a mother slaps their son.
Well, I mean, they were, I mean, Sophie, he was 15 at her school when they first met.
Weird.
What do you make of Candace's reporting on this?
Look, I think Candace is someone who is right 70% of the time, completely nuts the other 30% of the time. And to be honest, I was very much with Based and Bougie on this. I thought she was very much reaching. But my question is, I think the biggest problem is Brigitte a man, is the fact that why on earth is this relationship even existing with the age gap that it is? I mean, it's absolutely weird in every single metric, no matter what. But secondly, why did the French government care about what some random YouTuber in the US is saying about them? Do you know what I mean? If there wasn't any sort of element of truth, or they wouldn't care. Like, why would you care? If you're the French Prime Minister, why on earth do you care what some random YouTuber called Candace Owens is saying about you? So that's that. But at the same time, I just don't get why they actually care. Do you know what I mean? And you would just settle the issue quite quickly. And also, I mean, if she was a man, if she was a man, surely Macron, who's like the wokest of all of the sandwiches, would be like thrilling her about that he's going out with a transvestite. Do you know what I mean? That's what I think. If I was Macron and I was all woke and my wife was a transvestite, I'd be stringing it everywhere. So that's kind of what makes me think that it's not true. I think the thing that they're trying to conceal with that relationship is, of course, it's just utterly weird.
All I'm going to say is that today's incident is not going to help put the rumours to bed. That's my take on this. Sophie Corcoran, Based and Bougie, do stand by, because in just 1 minute, a new civil war has erupted at GB News over my revelation that Headliners is being axed. Oh my goodness, it's all kicked off over the weekend. I'm going to tell you everything I know in just 1 minute, so don't go anywhere. But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected. Well, I've been increasingly thinking of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online, and I'm delighted to tell you I have now found the fail-safe solution. But what's more, this VPN, or virtual private network to use the full term, is a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. Let me introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible and an easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activities stay safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe online. It allows you to access your favorite entertainment and news shows and channels from international streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, and Peacock, as well as Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney+. And what it means is that within seconds, you can be watching as if you're in another country. No worries about geo-blocks on your favorite shows anymore. And if you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports. Surfshark is an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries like France, which has blocked Rumble for many months now. Watch anything, anytime, anywhere. It is true freedom, which I am here for. Oh, and by the way, a VPN can save you money too, because you can actually get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying from. There are other benefits too. You can use Surfshark on unlimited devices, which means your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips with 24/7 customer service if this is your first time using a VPN. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. What's more, Surfshark's so confident it's the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely confident, you will get your money back. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show. Breaking right now, a civil war has broken out at GB News over my revelation late last week that Headliners, its 7-day-a-week 11 p.m. show featuring a host of comedians, including Josh Howie, Nick Dixon, Archie Manners, Lewis Schaefer, and Leo Kearse, has been axed after a campaign from Patrick Christie's to take another hour of airtime, even though it's going to mean a whole load of his colleagues being sacked. The dude has already paid £350,000 a year, okay? I think he's fine. I don't think he needs to take even more airtime. But as you can imagine, it all kicked off after I did break the news. Lewis Schaefer, one of the presenters, posted on X, "I'm on TV this evening, God and bosses willing. Maybe our last show. I'm heading into the studio. I've been told by management that the show will be on air for another 2 weeks while they decide what to do." And the poor headliners themselves, and this is a really difficult thing to do, had to go on air and pretend that everything was okay. Watch.
Lewis and Nick, how are you both doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you very much. We're not allowed to talk about it.
Okay, good. Nice.
I'm also feeling great. I felt really relieved lately. I don't know why. It's a feeling.
But yeah, it's like something... Life is a bit lighter.
Well, it's spring. We're moving into summer.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Yeah, even though the weather wasn't that good today.
Okay, well, thank you for not talking about it.
And in another wink, wink, nod, nod reference, Nick Dixon posted on a totally unrelated note, I highly recommend nickdixon.net, which features a weekly topical show from 2 of the headliners' favourites. It also got a little bit awkward when the headliners panel were referring to Gary Lineker's final day on Match of the Day.
And let's talk about Gary Lineker some more because I've been told we have to. So let's do that.
Well, listen, I think it's perfectly reasonable for GB News to warm its hands over the glow, the embers of their career.
But it hasn't just kicked off behind the scenes, which, trust me, it has. Some of GB News' favourite contributors have also spoken out against this decision. Liz Kershaw, a regular on Breakfast, posted, "Shame. I watch headliners on GB News whenever I can. I really like Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon, Paul Cox, Steve Allen, Simon Evans, Lewis Schaefer, and their take on things. Not so much Josh Howie. Since he's bigged up his part, it's gone to his head, fancying himself, talking over everyone, and seemingly bullying panelists so we don't get to hear their views so much. Monty, Tim Montgomery, simply asked the question, why? Question mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And Claire Fox added, as a regular viewer, genuinely disappointed. And there are a whole load of people, of course, who are disappointed with this decision, and I completely understand it. And you can imagine from my point of view why this one is so frustrating. Headliners was actually only created, remember I was one of the launch presenters at GB News, and Headliners was only created because I said it was absolutely insane that my program was running between 9 p.m. to midnight, 5 days a week. I knew that to create a primetime appointment to view show that was going to take on Sly News and the British Bashing Corporation, it had to be 2 hours. So luckily the bosses did relent and reduce the show to 2 hours. As a result, Headliners was launched. And from that point, we were flying. We were taking off. And that's why I'm sorry. It's so gross to see what Patrick Christie's has done here. remembering that this guy is always someone who's trying to take other people's jobs. I know, by the way, there's going to be lots of people watching. I saw your comments over the weekend saying, oh, Dan, you're so bitter. Patrick Christie's is a great guy. I love his show. Let me just tell you, if you knew about Patrick Christie's behavior behind the scenes at GB News, you would not be saying that. My job is to be honest about what I know in the independent media space, including about channels that I'm affectionate for, like GB News. But the way that Patrick Christie's has treated his former colleagues, including, by the way, his ex-co-presenter Mercy Muroki, is beyond the pale. This is a guy who has thrown producers' laptops and personal belongings outside the studio onto the floor from a great height when he isn't satisfied for some reason with their work. This is a guy who has effectively got away with murder on air for reasons that I won't go into now. But I'm sorry, to now see him take the job of all of these brilliant people, Simon Evans, Leo Kerr, Saatchi Manners, Nick Dixon, Cressida Wetton, Leo Schaefer, loads more. If you expect me to just say nothing, well, I'm not going to. Also, by the way, this is a mistake for Patrick Christie's himself, because who on earth wants to be presenting for 3 hours a night? Unless you're an egomaniac narcissist. You get my point. There are issues with headliners, though, and I'm not trying to say that there's not, because one of the problems since Josh Howie took over is that he's trying to increasingly move towards very, very hard-hitting topics, and it doesn't always blend well on a comedy show. So I found a couple of examples of this in relation to blood libel, which you can watch here. We'll come back to that in just a little while. While we are doing that, though, let me also just show you the list that Karen Hankey of the Dan Wootton Outspoken Club has updated today of all of the presenters who have now departed GB News forcefully. Mark Stein, Kirsty Gallagher, Andrew Neil, Colin Brazier, Alex Phillips, Simon McCoy, Darren McCaffrey, Anaya Falarin Aman, Gito Harry, Daisy McAndrew, Dominic Frisby, Rachel Sweeney, Rosie Wright, Mercy Muroki, Dahana Davidson, Becca Hudson, Isabel Oakeshott, Paul Hawkins, Father Calvin Robinson, Lawrence Fox, Rhiannon Jones, Mark Longhurst, Arlene Foster, Pip Thompson, Dan Wootton, who's he, Andrew Doyle, Dominic Frisby. It just goes on and on and on. So, let me bring in my superstar panel now, Sophie Corcoran and Based and Bougie. Sophie, what did you make of this decision?
Well, it's always sad to see people lose their jobs, isn't it? No one wants to see that. And there has been many stories in the past from GB News that they, of course, do not respect their not only their presenters but also their commentators in the way that they treat them, and eventually it's going to come round back and bite them, because eventually there's not going to be any good talent left. I mean, I got told by someone who is quite a senior person in GB News in terms of their output. They are regularly on TV all the time. They're one of their news team, who basically said that now that they're only choosing especially women commentators who have the right look, in a sense that they've gotten rid of some of their best commentators and their best contributors because they are unfortunately not very attractive, essentially, and that has been kind of confirmed to me by a conversation that one of their members of staff had with one of my friends, who said that they should be a commentator because they have the right look. So clearly they have wanted to present their women in a certain way, and it has come less about what they bring to the table and more about what they look like, which is a real shame. I didn't think it would be true, but considering the conversation that also was had with my friend, where they were told that they'd be good because they look a certain way, not because they're really good at anything else, it's just a real shame, to be honest. I think GB News started off so well. I really enjoyed my time on there. So did you, Dan. But just the way that they treat people, I think, is really poor. And there's always something that says, you should be careful of how you treat people on the way up, because it's always going to come back to bite you on the way down.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, the list, by the way, that was just up until my departure. But since then, let me tell you the other people who've gone. Liam Halligan, Ray Addison, Polly Middlehurst, Albiam Ancona, Tamsin Roberts, Caroline Flint, Tonya Buxton, Esther McVeigh, Philip Davies, Alison Pearson, Andrew Doyle, Mark Dolan, Isabel Webster, Stephen Wolfe, Paul Embry, Will Hollis, Darren Grimes. And then once you add the headliners into the mix, Based and Bougie, that's going to be a list of about 50 strong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I personally never really found headlines that funny, and I never really watched it. However, seeing that over 40 people have been sacked from their job at GB News just goes to show that there's a lot of disorganization there in that company. It just goes to show, for me personally, I feel like they're trying to do a rebrand of the company. That's what I sense. I think they're going to try to rebrand GB News into like a woke leftist media and try to portray it to be a conservative right-wing media, the same way Nigel Farage is doing with Reform. They're doing the same thing with GB News. So removing over 40 people that quickly, to me, it just screams rebrand. And obviously hearing all I've heard today about Patrick Christie and obviously what Sophie said about people's looks, it just goes to show that GB News' heart is no longer in the right place.
Totally. And it breaks my heart. And it breaks my heart. And the thing is, that's why when people criticize me for saying this, it's like, I'm sorry, how can you not see that this is a channel that has now been completely captured and taken over by the woke? I mean, I couldn't believe today Michael Booker actually had the cheek. He's one of the bosses there who has been behind this massive shift to the left, this massive shift towards censorship. And he posted, "Why the People's Channel will always stand by you." And I just had to reply to him. And I said, I've never read such bullshit in my life from the man who's done all he can to curtail free speech by brutally sacking presenters, censoring producers, and curating a banned list of people and topics longer than orders you gave not to cover the truth of the Southport massacre. And like we were saying earlier, Sophie Corcoran, GB News has been one of those latecomers to the Lucy Connolly case. They didn't say a damn thing last year. It was only once Alison Pearson had taken the story into the mainstream that presenters like Matt Goodwin and Tom Hardwood have decided that this is something that they're prepared to talk about. Now, when I was at GB News, the whole thing was, no, we are not part of the mainstream. We are going to do things first. We are going to challenge the narrative. So I'm sorry, I understand that there are still some good people there, and there are, you know, Nana Acquare, Ben Leo, Bev Turner, you know, there are still some good people at GB News. But honestly, trust me, they are censored. They cannot have the guests who they want on. They cannot talk about the things that they feel the need to talk about.
My question is, though, Dan, is, you know, if Patrick Christie is behaving in this way, and I don't have a lot of experience with Patrick, I did my first ever show ever on talk radio that I ever did, sort of ever with Patrick, and I did my first ever GB News show with Patrick, but I don't know him very well. I've heard stuff through the grapevine about a lot of things, but why aren't we speaking about this behaviour? Because if this behaviour occurred in sort of any other sort of, you know, place of work, I mean, it would be pretty preposterous. I mean, surely, you know, we don't have people throwing out their producers' stuff and things like that. I mean, I have to take the word for it, of course, because you know, but
well, trust me, it happened. It happened, and if it didn't happen, he's more than welcome to come and try and take action against me.
But why hasn't it come out in the media? That's what I'm saying. Who is covering this stuff up? Because surely, I mean, if presenters are behaving in this way, it's absolutely shocking that anybody would behave in this way. I mean, I think.
The treatment of Mercy Muroki and Alex Phillips, which is also connected to this, by the way, was utterly appalling, and they're unable to speak out. You know,
they are, but we're not. You're not.
Indeed, and that is why when people over the weekend have said, "Oh, Dan, you know, why are you being so negative about this?" It's because I've seen this behavior. I know this behavior is going on. I think it's appalling. Remember, this is a guy who I actually got the job at GB News. So I was completely responsible for bringing Patrick Christie's into GB News. I totally backed this guy for years and years and years. I also got him his job at Talk Radio. Now, I'm not doing that to big myself up, but I'm just trying to say this is a guy who I supported. But I think for me to see him now take the job so willingly of all of these other colleagues after he spent months lobbying to try and get my job when I was going through hell because I was being subjected to a cancellation campaign of lies. And I saw the management back him over Mercy Moroki when his treatment of Mercy Moroki. Now, that is her story to tell. But what I will say, Sophie, is that his treatment of her was utterly appalling. And so, you know, you're right. It's another cover-up. And unfortunately, it probably will keep being covered up. But in terms of the civil war at GB News, it's obviously now because all of these presenters on headliners know that they are losing their jobs because Patrick Christie's Mr. £350,000 has demanded another hour of television at 11 o'clock at night. It's like, why? Why do you even want it? You know, it's nuts. But look, I want to... Sorry.
I feel like Patrick is turning into a mini Nigel Farage. Like,
Yeah.
he just wants control of everything.
Yes.
And it's a shame.
Absolutely. Now, I just wanted to show you how things have got a little bit awkward on headliners, though, because this is the other problem. You see, since Andrew Doyle left, he was sort of the brains behind that show. It has gone down much more of a newsy route, and that can be quite difficult when you're trying to do comedy. So this was what we found to illustrate the point.
In their even though it's been proven since then to be totally false. So do you see how something like that can lead or has connected to saying 14,000 babies are going to be killed by Jews? Next thing you know, someone's screaming free Palestine and killing a bunch of Jews.
Yeah, I can obviously see the connection.
Okay, good. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah, thank you. Okay, good. You don't want to say anything else about that?
No, it's just very, very sad. And
no, it is.
So
I mean, it's sad, and I'm just angry. For or has a anti-racist charity. He's put out arguably what is racist blood libel, and there are real-world ramifications for it. And now he's deleted it, and it took him 2 days and hundreds of people to point out the lie before he did it.
I didn't see that, I have to say, so I can't comment.
Well, I did. I'm just saying, and I'm not even to say he's one of many, many people who have put this lie out there, and it's so frustrating to see it. Anyway, okay, that's the rant over. We're going to move on to the funny stuff. Let's move on to Trump banning foreign students at Harvard. That's funny, isn't it? In the Guardian.
I guess the only thing that's funny to me about that, Sophie, is the complete awkwardness. I mean, look, it is the problem, isn't it? I understand Josh Howie is incredibly passionate about these issues, and, you know, I think he should be, but it does sometimes make it difficult for a comedy show to work. He's, you know, look, he's no Greg Gutfeld, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, and I think people sort of watch headliners late at night because they don't want this kind of sort of hard-hitting news right before they go to bed at 11 p.m. But even still, I don't think headliners worked. I've never really enjoyed watching headliners. But my problem with this is, you know, you owe a duty of care to people. People shouldn't be finding out that they're losing their jobs on social media, and that companies shouldn't be operating this way in terms of firing people. I know obviously entertainment works a little bit differently than how normal jobs do, but there's still an element of respect. There's still an element of knowing that, you know, these people have rent to pay and potentially children to feed, and that you need to treat them nicely, and you need to treat them like human beings, which I think GB News has definitely lacked in a lot of ways. And they also don't communicate very well. And also, I don't think that another hour of Patrick Christie's is good. Try someone different. You know what I mean? 2 hours of him is good enough. People are going to switch off in the last hour.
Yeah.
Try someone new. You know, it doesn't even have to be a comedy show. Get a new voice. Get maybe a presenter that we haven't seen before. Get maybe one of your young, you know, your younger sort of, not even younger, but one of your sort of, you know, non-presenting panelists, you know, even an Emma Webb type person, for example.
Yep.
Or I think some of the boys are doing quite well, you know, the Will Kingstons and all of these guys. Get one of them to host the show. Why not? You know, what have you got to lose? Or, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of talented people out there that they can get to do another hour. Just do something a bit different. It's always quite nice to do something different. You know, you don't need 3 hours of the same person. I think, you know, even if he's quite good, I think you kind of get bored of listening to someone for 3 hours. I mean, I certainly would. I felt that when we were doing those 3 hour long shows, that people would just switch off after a while. Get someone new, get maybe a different type of show, maybe a sports show or something a bit different. Do you know what I mean? If it's not comedy, if it's not headlines, I don't think that show worked, but you have to treat people with respect.
Yeah, totally. And also there are some great talented people. Like, don't just axe them all. Like, find a vehicle for them that is going to work. But this is the problem. GB News is so used to throwing people under the bus. They want cheaper alternatives. They want easier alternatives. And this is, I guess, for me, when people say, oh, it's a family, it's a family. No, it's not a family unless your idea of a family is like the Beckhams or the Markles, right? Like, your family is more dysfunctional than them, GB News. And again, I say this knowing there'll be some people who are very upset about me saying this, but I have to be honest, I was there. I'm so disappointed to see what happened. I've spoken in detail about what's happened to Mark Steyn, what's happened to Lawrence Fox, what's happened to Calvin Robinson. And by the way, let me tell you, I have recorded a world exclusive interview with Mark Steyn, speaking in detail for the first time about his shocking act scene from GB News. He says he believes the station was actually trying to kill him. If you want first access to it, it is going to be released exclusively via my Substack, www.outspoken.live. The great thing about Substack too, by the way, is it is all about free speech. It is all about protecting me from big tech cancellation. And it is all about building a community too. So www.outspoken.live. But here's the great thing, Based and Bougie and Sophie Corcoran. We don't need these gatekeepers in the mainstream media anymore. As I say, I think these headliners guys are going to do so well in the independent space. Archie Manners and Nick Dixon and Leo Kearse. I'm already subscribed to Leo and Nick's platforms and everything. I think they'll do great. Do you know what I mean? I hope people can look at what I've done with Outspoken and understand that GB News really isn't the be all and end all. Actually, you're trapped if you're there. What you should be doing is coming in to this new independent media space. A revolution in the media is on the way. It's happening.
Yeah, especially for comedians, because if you're censored, you can't really be funny.
Totally.
You just can't. Comedy doesn't work when you censor it, and I think that's maybe why headliners didn't work, because comedy doesn't really work in the rules of Ofcom, unfortunately.
Totally. And Based and Bougie, you're all over YouTube, aren't you, and TikTok? This is your world.
Yes, this is my world. I grew up in a generation where we actually don't need the news anymore. And what's so disheartening is that when GB News first came out, it was such an exciting time for us. Like, yes, we finally have a platform that's going to speak for us. I remember when I got invited on GB News, I was super excited. But if I ever got invited on GB News today, I wouldn't care, because they are making it much more evident that they are part of the fake MSM mainstream establishment, and this constant firing of people that they're doing in mass. It's evident, it's very, very evident that they are trying to do a rebrand. And I know that where this is going to turn into like a leftist woke news channel. Yes. And they're going to try to disguise it as, well, no, we're for the conservatives, we're for the right, and they're not. I can see right through.
Well, let's just remember the fact that Tommy Robinson and Katie Hopkins are two people on that banned list. And I think if you have a conservative news network that isn't prepared to interview either of them, you can hardly say that they're conservative. But look, the great thing is we're in this independent media space. I'm really sorry if I've upset anyone by telling you the truth about GB News and Patrick Christie's, but that's what I do here on Outspoken. And it's what you two do. And I always love having you, my superstar panel, Based and Bougie and Sophie Corcoran. You can find them on social media, of course. Oh, and who's this, Sophie?
This is my dog. She's just come in. I've tried to keep her out like the whole time.
What's her name?
Her name's Ellie. She's so naughty. She could open the door, so she's just decided.
She's beautiful. What breed is she?
She's a Weimaraner. She's so cute. I've been trying to. If you see me trying to close the door, it's because
I was like, who's trying to get into Sophie's?
Who's
trying to get into Sophie's room? Is there a man there? Okay, no, it's your dog. Fine. Okay, great stuff. Thank you both so much. Thank you. Lots of comments coming in from you. Liam Bream says, voting UKIP will help the other parties. They are not big enough. Reform. And if Nigel fails, then UKIP will no doubt a new party. In terms of the Macron story, Lady J N.I. says, divorce on the cards. See his face when going down the stairs. He was absolutely fuming and his fist was clenched. And Jenny Chilton says that was no play fight. The female flight attendant who saw it was embarrassed for having seen it too. Okay, time to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. Your nominees are Emanuel Macron, nominated by Big Mama Booth for being caught by the Associated Press giving a shove in the face from Brigitte as they land in Air Force One in Hanoi. Michael Gove, nominated by The Grift Report for asking the son of his celebrity has helped him or hindered his life. And Gary Lineker, nominated by Touring with Nick C. And that is, of course, because of his tear-filled departure from Match of the Day. In third place, with 10% of the voters, Michael Gove. In second place, the runner-up with 37% of the vote, Emanuel Macron. But today's Union Jackass, good riddance to bad rubbish, Gary Lineker. And today's Greatest Britain, returning to our digest theme, nominated by nominated by Poshover, is Charlie Kirk. He's an American but speaks loads of sense about the state of the UK. He currently visited Cambridge and Oxford student unions with some quite heated debates. We should all take on board his comments. He has over 6 million followers on social media. He reckons the UK could be on a slippery slope. Thank you so much. Coming up in the Uncancelled After Show, though, on Substack, Meghan Markle's American Airlines air hostess message is exposed as a stunt. I'll reveal the truth about how she treats staff on board as we team up with the Royal News Network. So, all you have to do is sign up at www.outspoken.live. We're back, though, live tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. And most importantly, I promise